Greetings. Happy 2023 to everybody everywhere. Very, very hot here today. It's been very hot the last week. I know people that have snowed under don't want to hear that, but it's the way it is when you live at the other end of the world. I just thought I'd show you what was top of the top 40 charts in Sydney, Australia, on one of the radio stations. There were three that did pop music: 2SM, 2UW, and 2UE, which are these ones. That was 2UE wasn't the station I listened to much, but my local record shop kept these charts. I would have preferred 2SM or 2UW, which were actually had more groovy DJs, unlike this lot. You know, as you can see, not exactly teenagers, were they? Okay, I thought I'd just see if I had still had the records, and yep, I got them, boy. So, I collected the charts from mid-65 till the end of 67, and then, of course, I started working early 68, so I was into albums. I could afford to buy albums, finally. And singles just dropped away. It didn't buy many singles at all until and then singles just, back in the 70s I'd get a few, bands that like Sparks. I did have one of their albums, but I used to buy singles when I thought that the band wasn't capable of making a great album, spending good dollars on an album for one track. So I did continue to buy singles, but the singles dropped right away. 60s and the 50s was all about singles for us youngsters, as we were at the time. Okay, so this is the first week of January 1966. This one is specifically the 5th of January, and on top of the charts is We Can Work It Out, Day Tripper, the Beatles. It had been in for 6 weeks at that stage. Oh no, sorry, 3 weeks. It had been in for 3 weeks, so that would have been the typical Christmas release. So it would have been a Christmas release for Christmas 1965, which is earlier than I remember. I thought We Can Work It Out came later than that, because that was sort of like a huge leap forward for the Beatles. I mean, to be honest with you, We Can Work It Out is probably my favourite Beatles. And here it is listed as the A-side, which it should be. It's a double A-side. They played both sides, Day Tripper and We Can Work It Out. Probably got 50-50 airplay. But there was something really, really special about We Can Work It Out. It was a big leap forward in their composing style. Just love it. Day Tripper's it's just generic, drive my car, Day Tripper. It's basically the same riff, They were out of ideas when they came up with Baby You Can Drive My Car on Rubber Soul or Day Tripper, which would have been recorded all at the same time. But, hey, we just wrote Day Tripper. What else can we write? Hey, if you go, we could write about a car going on a day. Anyway, but We Can Work It Out. Wow, classic. And I just happen to have my original here. Pussy's caught something. I hope it's not a baby brown snake, because those little bastards are just as toxic as the adults, but they've got no self-control, It's caught something. Day Tripper. We Can Work It Out. Australian Parlophone. Shiny. Pussy, I don't know what you got down there, but don't bring it here, please. Bit subdued today. Haven't been sleeping well because of the heat. So, right, and that was 66 January. Now we're coming up to the 4th of January 1967, and an even better single, or an equal anyway, Australia's wonderful, awesome Easy Beats. Number 1, Friday on My Mind, with a fantastic B-side, Made My Bed. Gonna Lie In It. Terrific single, that. Wow. Terrific single. That was their only big hit worldwide, which was criminal because they had better songs. Well, not equal to Friday on My Mind. And I won't get this one out. This is my original. I have bought others whenever I saw them. If they were dirt cheap, 5 cents, I'd buy them anyway. But this one was wrapped in plastic, very light, one light spindle mark. By golly, I looked after my records. The only time I ever got damaged was if someone nagged me to borrow one, and if I ever got it back, it'd come back damaged, you know. But always remember flipping this over and playing the B-side. Made My Bed, Gonna Lie In It. Yeah. And the difference is, in the space of 1 year, this is a fairly... I actually prefer this one. This is what the Parlophone looked like up until early 60s, late 66, I'm sorry. This is a late 65, early 66. It's got the, that cool pound note there. But then by the time the 4th of January came around, they'd done the old boxing thing. Like when Decca did the label in 68, 69, I hated it. It just ruined it. And this one's not so bad, but anyway, so there we have it. And, oh yes, there was one other thing I had to say. In those days, albums just weren't on the radar, not even for adults. Like an album was something you bought at Christmas or some special occasion, you know. That's why, so many records that you find in the op shops are horrible records, like Bing Crosby's Christmas and Elvis Sings Christmas and the Ronettes do Christmas and the Beach Boys do Christmas. Oh, Christ, I hate fucking Christ mess. I really hate it. But the one thing was that albums just didn't sell. And the funny thing is here, at the beginning of January 1966, and the top selling album was The Sound of Music, with Help in second place, the Beatles. Third place, Normie Rowe A Go-Go. Go Normie! Out of Our Heads, the Rolling Stones, number 4. The Best of Billy Thorpe. And Mary Poppins soundtrack. So top and bottom there, you got Julie Andrews, The Sound of Music, and Mary Poppins. She had the top 5 sewn up. 6. So that's so funny. But there were actually 3 cool records on there. And yes, I bought Help, the album. No longer have it. Gave it to my nephew. But I still have my original Out of Our Heads. Oh, yes. And the funny thing was, 1 year later, exactly 1 year later, guess what's still number 1 in the album chart? Number 1. The Sound of Music. It's still number 1. That just shows you how few albums there were and how few sold. And it had obviously been on the chart for 12 months, and it probably went for another bloody 12 months for all I know. And it could have been going for 12 months before the first one I showed you. So Yeah, incredible. Albums didn't mean a thing in those days. But the interesting thing here is this is definitely not a good that list I read off from early '66, early '67 is atrocious. Number one, Sound of Music, Young Johnny Young, a bubblegum pop star in Australia, Going Places, Herb Albert and the Tijuana Brass, Great Scott, Sandy Scott. Now that's really interesting. He was more for the mums and pops, but he was sort of pretty, in that Engelbert Humperdinck sort of style, Australian. Whipped Cream, Herb Albert. So there's two Herb Alberts, and man, it went down the drain after a year. It's awful. And the only good album on here is in the last spot in early '67, the Beatles' Revolver. Anyway, time is passing at a rapid rate, and it's almost 2024 now. Anyway, um, have stay warm, those in the northern hemisphere, and keep cool those down under. Bye for now.